You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I've got Ole Miss slotted 7th in my preseason SEC power rankings. Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss is here to discuss. For those who haven't seen on YouTube yet, they go like this. We'll just go 1 through 10. Steven: Georgia, Texas, Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Florida, Texas A&M, and Tennessee there at number 10. I want to start with your Rebels. 9-3 last year, the most disappointing 9-3 team probably in all of college football. I had them going 10-2 or 11-1. They go 9-3. We don't need to rehash all of that. Are they a pullback team in 2025 in your eyes?
Oh, yeah. I think Locked On Ole Miss, we did our predictions, and I predicted 10-2. The two losses being on the road at Georgia and on the road at Oklahoma. I think they're able to win those games. I think Austin Simmons is a 1-1 level quarterback. I think everybody's going to see that pretty quick. And Ole Miss has talent all over the field. PFF rated them the number 8 program in all of college football. I think you kind of overshot the mark whenever you were ranking Ole Miss in your rankings.
You think they go 10-2 this year?
Yep.
After going 9-3 last year, losing some pretty high-profile NFL draft picks, including their quarterback, including Walter Nolan and Trey Harris, and you think the record is getting better? Because when I say pull back, Steven, I mean regress. I mean not be quite as good as last year. But you think
I don't think they'll be as talented. I think the record will be better. Ole Miss has 8 home games this season. They play 5
That's
of
a
their
lot.
first, they play 5 of their first 6 at home. Their hardest game in that period is a home game against LSU, which they will be favored in. They will be favored in 11 of the 12 games that they play. They do go back-to-back against Georgia and Oklahoma on the road in the middle. That's 2 of their 3 road games, or 2 of their 4 road games back-to-back in the middle. Ole Miss after that has South Carolina at home. They have the Citadel. They have Florida at home, and they go to Mississippi State. 2 of their 4 road games is at Kentucky and at Mississippi State. So if Ole Miss just holds serve at home, which traditionally Lane Kiffin has done very well, all of a sudden you look at Oklahoma and at Georgia as the biggest landmines on your schedule.
I agree. Those are the landmines. The home slate should be pretty epic for the Rebels. LSU, South Carolina, Florida. That's pretty good lineup. Can I throw something at you before we dive into the rest of my SEC power rankings you have a problem with? Mississippi State is going to beat somebody this year that they shouldn't.
Tennessee.
At least in the eye. Boy, do you and I see the world the same way all the time? No. Were we thinking the same thing there? Yeah, we were. Because I've said, after watching Jeff Lebby's first season last year, they weren't good, they weren't talented, but I watched him and went, you know what? I think that guy's got his head screwed on as a head coach. I think they take that small step this year and just beat somebody that everyone goes, what? They beat who? Who lost to Mississippi? Could be Tennessee. But, Steven, rivalry game, it's in Starkville this year. Would that shock you if the Egg Bowl went the way of the Bulldogs?
Yes, it would shock me. Now, it would not shock me if that game was 17-7. It would not shock me if it was a low-scoring, tough football game, because traditionally it has been. Right now, I think Ole Miss is favored by 15.5 points on FanDuel. That's way too many points for that game, but I do think Ole Miss is going to win. Ole Miss has won 4 out of the last 5 games against Mississippi State in Starkville. They lost one time, and that was the game that got you Lane Kiffin to Oxford, Mississippi.
No, it turned out to be all right, all things considered. Kiffin is one of the many reasons I have Ole Miss as high as I do in my rankings, Steven. I think we have established pretty solidly what kind of program he runs, where the floor, where the ceiling is. I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet at Ole Miss. I think he's capable of getting him back to the opportunity they squandered a season ago. But the floor is clearly high, and I have them slotted one place ahead of Florida because of Lane Kiffin versus Billy Napier. I think that I'm not a Billy Napier guy. I know everybody likes him because of how they ended last season, and I just cannot forget that they were trounced twice in a 3-week span on their home field. I'm not a Billy Napier guy. So I love DJ Lagway. Definitely trust him more than Austin Simmons as we record this show on July 13th. But is there anything else in these conference rankings, particularly in the top 10, that you think is objectionable for the SEC?
Yeah, you know how much I love coming on this show, but I want to see this rankings. You got a new quarterback at Georgia, a new quarterback at Texas, a new quarterback at Alabama, a new quarterback at Oklahoma. Those positions, it's almost brand because it's Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Brand is like the tie of putting them in the top 7. I think Ole Miss, listen, if Ole Miss would have played South Carolina for 8 quarters last year, they would not have scored a touchdown. And maybe that is clouding my judgment of what's going on. But Ole Miss is a better team than South Carolina. Ole Miss is better than Oklahoma. LSU is the only returning quarterback, but they're having to deal with the offensive line turnover. And everybody loves Arch Manning. Whenever you hear about Arch Manning, everybody loves Arch Manning. Arch Manning has an all-new offensive line to deal with and all-new wide receivers. We don't know how that's going to end up. And the only time we saw Ty Simpson was against South Florida in a game that Alabama barely won. I'm saying pump the brakes a little bit on these rankings of what's going on. You got Missouri, I think, a little bit too low. I think you got Vandy too low, and it feels weird.
I thought about it. Vandy's at 13, and just for the outrage from Blackerby, I thought about putting Vandy above Auburn. He might have led his show with it every day for an entire week. I'm not bullish on Hugh Freeze and Auburn this year. The talent is really good on the Auburn roster. They underachieved so much last year. And Vandy, I think, not necessarily overachieved. I mean, compared to their preseason expectations, yes. But with Diego Pavia, the talent on the field, I think they came close to hitting their ceiling. 7-6 is kind of where they are. I'm not going to sit here and ever trust Vanderbilt going into a season to be a top half program in the SEC. Like, it's just not where I think a reasonable expectation could be until they prove otherwise. They do have one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the conference, but I want to go back. I'm glad you pointed it out because Vanderbilt is an interesting one, and I think it's frankly great that they're not last in my rankings, and I don't think I think if you put them last, it would be objectionable, seeing as they went to a bowl game last year. Here's my thinking on the top 3. I'm with you on the quarterback uncertainty because, of course, there isn't a proven quarterback in the top 5, really, for my rankings. You've got Georgia, Texas, Bama, LSU, and South Carolina outside of Garrett Nussmeier. Lenore Sellers, I've seen more of him than Arch Manning, so I'd probably have him slightly ahead. But Georgia, Texas, Bama, yeah, certainly some questions. I trust that Georgia is going to put a caliber team around Gunnar Stockton, who I saw in the playoff and I thought was pretty darn good. I think they're going to get back to being what they were, because Kirby Smart just pulled off what he has described as the best coaching job in his tenure. And this is not somebody who the game is passing him by, he's lost a step or anything like that. Unless I'm given incredibly compelling evidence, I'm going to give that benefit of the doubt to the reigning SEC champions who went to Texas and won, beat him again on a neutral field. That's a really difficult thing to do. I think Stockton just has to be solid, and I think Kirby Smart has got plenty of talent on that roster to just be a top 3rd team in the SEC, or top 4 or 5 team overall in the SEC. Possibly.
I mean, that's real. And if you look at college football as a whole, think of how many top 30 level teams are replacing quarterbacks this year.
So many.
So much unknown this year. And so I don't envy that you having to come up with a list like this. I don't envy that at all. But the main problem that I have is, like, everybody is in favor of Arch Manning. And one of the arguments that I have, and I'm an Ole Miss person, that's Archie Manning and Eli Manning. So whenever I say this, know that it's not coming from necessarily a bad place. But if his name was Arch Davis, Texas would not be the number 2 team in the conference.
I don't know, because I've watched Arch start multiple games, look pretty good, and win.
That was ULM, UTSA, and Mississippi State.
You got an SEC team in there and a couple of G5s that are respectable.
But he did come in against Georgia and had to get taken back out again because of performance. Basically.
No, I understand that. Where I come down is a guy that is going into his 3rd year, who's going to have, I think, a true number one caliber wideout in Ryan Wingo on the perimeter with a good offense.
They're going to be nasty.
Yes, a good offensive play caller like Sark, and a defense that I think is going to be nasty again. A unit I loved all last year, and it felt like it took the rest of the country half a season to catch up to where I was on the Texas defense, which is, are you looking at these guys? There are playmakers all over the place. Well, they've got that again. I mean, Colin Simmons is ferocious. Anthony Hill Jr. is a stud. They've got a DB or two coming back from last year. I like where Texas is at. And I've seen, by the way, I've seen more from Arch than I have seen from Ty Simpson at Alabama, than I have seen from Austin Simmons at Ole Miss, than I have seen from Joey Aguilar at Tennessee. Like, there aren't
John Mateer at Oklahoma.
I like Mateer. I've watched a lot of Mateer. I just haven't watched any John Mateer in the SEC.
Yes.
That's why I wonder, because Venables does have that defense playing well. They are talented. I think they've had a good portal cycle, and there's a lot of pressure there to win, and I think that can kick some coaching staffs into high gear. I'm not the biggest Brent Venables fan. I just think that in the offseason, I think they have done a good job. And the defensive, now I was concerned year one with Brent Venables that the defense stunk. I was like, man, you should have been able to come in and fix that quicker than you did. It keeps getting better. It was a really good unit last year. The offense was incompetent. I don't think Mateer goes to New York as a Heisman finalist. I do think that with his running ability, he gives them a certain floor that makes me have to trust him more than some of the other quarterbacks in the SEC. That's why I had Oklahoma as high as I did.
I will say this about Texas. If you wanted to tell me that the offensive line struggled at Texas, if the injury bug hit the wide receiver unit, they had a really good defense, and you had a 5-star quarterback back behind, and you hope you could get some healthy running backs in the system, I'd say that was Oklahoma in 2024. And that's the problem for Texas. They have them preseason ranked number 1 in the country, but there are a couple of injuries and a bunch of unknowns away from getting pretty weird, in my opinion. I think Oklahoma is going to be pretty good this year, if we're just honest about it. I think Texas is on 8-4 watch this year.
He said it. I didn't say it, folks. It was said on this show. I fully admit that. I could have edited it out. I didn't. But Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss said that. We love them. We love them for it anyway. We're sticking with the SEC. Hopping to the trail. LSU on fire.